Hi, Naomi back for another video. We wanted to look a little bit more at the Azazel goat as we've come to understand it a bit better, all right, in its proper context, all right. So we're going to look at the land not inhabited, because if we go to Leviticus 16, it says this. Okay, Leviticus 16, we'll start at verse 20. It's about the scapegoat. The Azazel goat would be your Hebrew word there, Azazel, and it means scapegoat. And as is a female goat, Azel means to wander to and fro. So I'm going to pinpoint this as a she-goat, and I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to link the she-goat to the she-goat that you find in Genesis 15:9, which is the Abrahamic-Sarah covenant, all right? And she represents actually the Spirit of Christ, okay? The reborn Spirit in the end of days. So we'll begin at verse 20. And when he hath made an end of reconciling the holy place and the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, he shall bring the live goat. This is the scapegoat. Verse 21, and Aaron shall lay both of his hands upon the head of the live goat and confess over her, not him. They'll say, well, it says him, so it must be him, because you know those males don't lie about translation, and they hand you an eraser and tell you to erase yourself out of the mirror because you don't really exist, I guess, in the heavenlies. But anyway, it says, and confess over her all the iniquities of the children of Israel and all their transgressions and all their sins, putting them upon the head of the goat, and shall send her away. They got the him italicized, which is a signal that they imposed it on the text, away by the hand of a fit man into the wilderness. Verse 22, and the goat shall bear upon her, this is the spirit bearing the sins, representative of a she-goat, all their iniquities unto a land not inhabited. That's the word we're going to look at right now. And he shall let go the goat in the wilderness. All right, and we'll leave it there. So we're going to look at that word, a land not inhabited. Unto a land not inhabited. That's the word we're going to look at. And that word is number 1509 in your Hebrew concordance. And it's a feminine noun. It means separation. It means unto a land of separation of the goat for Azazel, solitary land, a cut off land, whence it would not readily find its way back from. Now, what we come to realize is that the daughters of Zion, when the men of Israel rejected their rulership, they ended up being tossed out into the lands of the Gentiles, which is this land not inhabited. That's what we're coming to realize. Jeremiah 31 tells us that a new thing will exist in the earth in the end of days. Did I lose it? I'm just going past it here. And it says a strange thing will exist in the earth. It says a woman shall encompass a man. Well, in the beginning, what we did was we identified the land of Israel in the very beginning as the seed of the woman Eve that was blessed. She was set apart. Adam did not want a covenant with the righteous spirit, which was represented by the woman Eve. He chose a covenant with the whore spirit. And in Galatians 4:24, it tells us these two women represent two covenants. One that comes from Sinai that puts you in bondage. That's Old Testament law. That's the covenant between fallen Adam and the whore spirit. So whoever is saying Torah, 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 well, you're saying I want to be subjected to Old Testament law, which puts especially women under the bondage of men, and you're saying I'll be part of that covenant between the whore spirit and fallen Adam. We'll be part of that. That wasn't the original covenant from heaven. Nor was it the covenant that Christ came to give. Christ gave us those 10 commandments. And for those who think Old Testament law was of God, you need to go read Isaiah 58, I believe it's in.
We're not going to do that here today. I'm just double checking myself. And yeah, I got some facts wrong when I was talking about the Vimy Monument in France on one of my videos. Of course, it was bequeathed to Canada after World War I. I remember studying all that now last year and looking into it and history of it. But you forget so many details. And yeah, it was what built Canada. It was one of our defining points. But yeah, I got some things wrong. You know, it was 250 acres. That was bequeathed, and a lot of wonderful details. Anyway, if you want to go look at it. But you'll find that the Old Testament law, which you'll call Torah law, is not from God at all. And you'll find it in Isaiah 58. And she speaks about the fast that she has chosen for her people. And she says it's not the sacrificing of animals. That was not my way. It was never my way. And she goes into more detail. The Spirit. I'm talking about the Spirit here. And so for those who thinks Torah is the way to go to get back to God, wrong path. That's your crooked path. We're looking to get on the clean footpath, the straight and narrow way, which is not what puts you in bondage. That's grace. That's grace. And yet it says in the New Testament, your women are to keep silent under the law. So saith the law. That's not from God. That's not from God, because that's not grace. And Mother says, I'll remove the name of Baal from out of your mouth. Baal means husband, Lord, and master. That's your fallen image that those 10 tribes of Israel, which is your northern kingdom. Ephraim, which is going to smash those 10 toes on that false image, that false Baal image that exalts a man as a god in the earth. That's the covenant between the whore spirit and fallen Adam. He rejected one with Eve's glory, her spirit, her righteous spirit. And when she was set out, this is what Israel represents, the separation of that glory. But Israel represented Eve's seed in the very beginning. Sorry, I got off track. And she was surrounded by Adam's seed and that whore spirit seed. All right? Because her seed was the blessed seed. But when the nation of Israel, the men of Israel, began to come against those rulers of the daughters of Zion, which we discussed in another video, they were rejected. The men began to reject their rulership. And Mother says, fine, you don't want my strong right hand. You don't want my daughter Zion ruling you. Then you won't have her. I'll cast her out in the fields of the Gentiles. And that meant that she also had to bear the sins. All right? Now, most will say, well, yeah, but it's her fault. That's why she bore this. Was it Christ's fault? He bore the sins. And these daughters, or at least one of them, was cast out in the fields of the Gentiles to bear the sins as the Spirit that was blamed for it all, though she was the one who stood for truth and continued to stand for truth. And so, like I said, we begin to understand with the Azazel goat, when that goat was cast out into a land not inhabited, is talking about the Gentile nations. These daughters of Zion, Israel. And we discussed how you're only going to trace your lineage of Israel through the daughters. You're not going to trace it through the sons. But this is also how her birthright grew and enlarged, which was a promise that we find in Isaiah 49. Mother says, you'll now not only be a light unto the Israelites, you will also be a light unto the Gentiles. Now we go to Micah 5 and we see the remnant of Israel, which is these daughters of Zion. They're the 144,000 daughters of Zion. And they're lying, sleeping like lionesses, Ariels, out amongst the Gentiles. That's what it says. And the Azazel was cast out into the fields of the Gentiles to bear the sins of Israel. And what does Romans 11 tell us? Let's go to Romans 11. And we've discussed this as well. What does it say? It says, what then? Israel had not obtained that which she, it says he, well, they always put he, unless it's a really nasty thing, then it's a she. She seeketh for,
But the election, that's the 144,000 daughters of Zion, have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So what does it say? Verse 15. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world. These are the daughters of Zion that were cast out in the fields of the Gentile, represent as that Azazel goat that was cast into a land not inhabited, to wander to and fro in the process of sanctification, where she still lies sleeping like a lioness, an Ariel, out amongst the Gentiles. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? She's going to resurrect the dead, right? How does she do that? Verse 16, for if the first fruits be holy, the lump is also holy. The body is also holy. If your spirit is holy, then your body is holy. Get it? And if the root be holy, so are the branches. Where did she originate from? The original daughters of Zion who fought for truth and stood for it. The right hand of Mother Yahweh. And it is the daughter Zion that sits to Christ's right hand. His number is 113. Again, I made the mistake of saying 118. He's identified as number 113. She's identified as 136. And Mother Yahweh's number is 3086, I believe. And I might even have that one wrong. Now, what does it say? In Isaiah 40. This is the Azazel goat again. It says, speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned. She bore the sins. The Spirit, the righteous Spirit, bore the sins. For what this world did to her, she bore the sins of it. Just as Christ bore the sins for what Adam did. You have the counterpart here. You have the ram and you have the she-goat right here in view. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received of the Lord's hand double for all her sins. And we talked about why it's double in the last video. We skimmed it. But what does it say here? This is her resurrecting the body. Just what we looked at just a moment ago in Romans 11. What did it say? We'll go to it again. It says, for if the casting away of them be, they'll put them, they wouldn't dare put daughter of Zion, because fallen Adam and the horror spirit's all about lies and trying to keep your head down. They do not want you picking your head up, realizing who you are as a daughter. Especially if you're one of these daughters of Zion. They do not want you knowing it. And it tells us in this very chapter that they are a divine selection, but they had been known before the foundations of the world. So for if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? The resurrecting the body, because they represent the spirit that resurrects the body. That's what these daughters of Zion do. What do you find in Isaiah 40, verse 9? O Zion, that bringest good tidings, get thee up into the high mountain. O Jerusalem, that bringeth good tidings, lift up thy voice with strength, lift it up, be not afraid. Say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God. This is the spirit that brings life to the body. Christ was representing Judah, right? The spirit comes from Israel, which is the northern kingdom. And we trace that through Joseph's lineage that you find in Genesis 49, verse 22, 23, 24. It says the spirit will come from Joseph, which is your rock that you're founded upon, your spirit, your foundation. What does it say? Verse 10, behold the Lord God, that Lord there is 136, as daughter Zion. She will come with a strong hand. That's the daughters of Zion. Her arm shall rule for her. That's Mother Yahweh. Behold, her reward is with her, and her work before her. Now, because the world wants to deny that there's a mother and a daughter, we all say father and son. No mother required. No daughter required. No. Take an eraser, stand in front of a mirror, and erase your image. Because there's something wrong with it. I mean, it's a false image, apparently, according to the current teachings of man-made theology, which is Old Testament law, which keeps you under bondage, especially as a woman. So we wanted to pull that together. If my phone rings, I'm going to cut the video short, okay? And chapter 40 of Isaiah, we could really go into some depth in this chapter because it really is amazing. Verse 3, it says, the voice of him, they'll tell you that was John in the New Testament. They'll tell you it's Elijah that's coming. I think it's the spirit of Elijah that was behind Elijah, just like the spirit that was behind Moses that I saw in my dream as one of these daughters of Zion that I was being shown that I am. And I believe there's many other daughters that may well have been shown something very similar. And it is the spirit that is going to go forth this time. They're actually manifested in real bodies, real female bodies. The voice of her, the spirit, that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight. Make the path straight. That means we're not under fallen theology. We're not under man-made laws. We're not under the Torah. That's the horror spirit covenant and fallen Adam covenant that keeps you under bondage. So make the path straight. Each valley shall be exalted, every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. Who's the glory? These daughters of Zion. And all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. So you're not going to stop what God herself prophesied would come to pass. You're not going to stop it with your man-made theology going, well, it says he, so it must be he's. They're the mighty men. No, they're not. It's mighty women. Zechariah 3 is talking about the daughters of Zion, this choice selection from whence the one branch will come from, which is the bride of Christ, which is the covenant remade. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see her. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. It will come to pass regardless of what anybody says. We're not getting out of here worshiping a false image, he, and going to the new body, to the new heavens. We're not going to do that. We're not going to be raptured out of here believing a bunch of lies. That God is he. Oh, it says it here, so it must be so. Mother says, no, my truth is going to come to pass. I don't care what lies they wrote. It doesn't overshadow my truth that's going to be revealed in the earth. Okay, so we're going to leave that there. But I'll tell you, Isaiah 40 is a really wonderful chapter to look at. Now, I could cut the video off here, but I'm going to be adding a second part here. Okay. I was looking at a strange topic, and what caused me to look at the strange topic in the Bible, because I'd hit on this before, and it was the nose ring. I'd hit on that nose ring. I'd hit on it and have these women wore nose rings in the Old Testament, and I thought, ew, who'd want to wear a nose ring? But I also, it kept coming up to me because of the verse that I found in Job 40. And this is the verse that kept me thinking about that nose ring every time I hit it. Okay? So it says this. It says, and I'll read you all of the versions that I have here. Okay? So this is Job 40, and it's talking about the behemoth. Now, I've identified the behemoth, and I ain't gone into a lot of detail about it, but I did go into detail about it in one of my videos. But I've identified that behemoth really as the heifer that is also in view in the Abrahamic Sarah covenant in Genesis 15:9. Now, they call it a behemoth. It's not.
it was a massive heifer, I believe. And it represented Israel in the beginning when she was functioning in the full capacity that she was intended to function in. And so I believe that heifer represents Israel, this collective group of the daughters of Zion, and how it was this powerful moving entity, okay? So I won't go into more details than that. But in verse 24 it says this, it says, can anyone capture it, no, her, by the eyes, or trap it and pierce its nose? So I had hit nose rings, and the Spirit is amazing how the Spirit works, and the Spirit had caused that to stay in my mind, because out of curiosity I was like, nose ring, why would anybody want a nose ring? Because I wouldn't. But anyway, and another one says, can one take her by her eyes or pierce her nose with a snare? Of course I got him again. Can anyone capture her when she is on watch with barbs, which means a snare? Can anyone pierce her nose? 24, she taketh it with her eyes, her nose pierces through snares. Lies. Fallen theology. You're not gonna put her in bondage. You're not gonna oppress her, because that's the symbol of the nose ring. Can anyone capture her while she looks on, or pierce her nose with snares? So now we're going to look at the nose ring in this way, and I realize that there is likely more than one way to look at the nose ring, because one of the passages that I hit on, and they either put it in there when it didn't belong in there, or it was a symbol of Rebecca agreeing to be put under oppression. Because when the servant of Abraham went to seek out a wife from his family's house, because they took from their own family, the servant gave her a nose ring to put on, it says, and other things. But the nose ring figured quite prominently in my mind, because I was like, why would you agree to a nose ring? Because it was a symbol of the covenant. But it's a symbol of the Holy Spirit covenant, agreeing to come under bondage. That's what that's a symbol of. Because if you look up the nose ring, they would put a nose ring in an animal that they wanted to be able to lead, right? In a sense, to take the power away from that creature so that they could put it within their sphere and ability to handle it, right? So if you go look up nose ring, when it comes to animals, it has some interesting details. So here, it's curious, haven't researched it, but I'm pretty sure it was never a man that had nose rings in. It was always a woman that had nose rings in. And it speaks of it in a very negative sense when it comes to these daughters of Zion who took possession of Mount Zion, that became exalted by those men who wanted harlots, which made them harlots. Men are called harlots too. They have a term for harlotry, which is male and female. And so they did this together. But these women willingly went around wearing nose rings. And that seemed to be a symbol of the Holy Spirit covenant. Willing to come under bondage of the male. That's what that seems to symbolize. Because when you go read about the Shulamite, she never is seen wearing a nose ring. Never. That's not part of her nature. It says in Song of Songs 7:4, she's not wearing a nose ring. It says, thy neck is as a tower of ivory, thine eyes like the fish pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim. Your nose is like the tower of Lebanon, which faces toward Damascus. Well, that's interesting too. But we won't get into that. But that nose ring, she's not wearing a nose ring, and neither is Israel, this behemoth, which I believe represents the nation of Israel. That's what I believe it represents. And it says, and it's referencing these daughters here in the very end verse.
Can one take her by her eyes or pierce her nose with a snare? Are you going to put her under oppression of man-made theology, of Old Testament law, when she's on guard, when she's on duty, when she's doing what she's supposed to do for the body? You're not going to entrap her in a man-made snare. And what does it say? It says, the snare that they made for her, they fall into it themselves. I know I shouldn't be sharing this. I wrote it down. Where did I write it? Right here. Now, this is a show that I don't watch. I refuse to watch because all it is porn, in my opinion. And that's Games of Thrones, okay? It's just porn. But the storyline of it does interest me. But this is the part, there's a guy that has a channel and he always opens with this. And I was just, anytime I see any smut, I'll just skip right over it. I have to. I just can't take it because I see the debasement of women and the control of men in this man-made theology. I can't help it. That's what I see. And I'm meant to see it as a daughter of Zion. So it says this. It opens up. This is a quote, okay, from the actual show, Games of Thrones, that this guy who has his channel always opens his channel up with this. And it says, the realm. Do you know what the realm is? The 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemy. Now, the name Aegon means heir. It's funny because an heir, H-E-I-R, sounds a lot like air, breath, doesn't it? The 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. The story we agreed to tell each other over and over, and I'm going to say over and over and over again, till we forget that it's a lie. That's the snare. They no longer know the truth. They've told the lie so long that they no longer know the truth. You know who the heir here? It's not a man. It's a woman. It's a queen. It's a daughter. It's daughter Zion. And a lot of the time, the theology, a lot of these shows are trying to tell you the same thing. But you see, they fall into the snare themselves. They think they're going to deliver the children. And that's why it says in Jeremiah, and I believe it is 31. Let me look here. Because Jeremiah is a long chapter. I'll find it just a second. And I'm sure it's this chapter that says it. All right, well, I'll just quote it because it's just easier if I do. But it says, why then do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips like a man in travail? They don't believe they need a woman to deliver the burden. They don't believe they need women because you know what this says? Do you realize what this says? It says he. So that means you erase your image, girls. They've told the lie so long that they fell into their own snares. That's what it says. And yet it says when the daughter Zion is on duty, they can't ensnare her. They won't put no nose ring through her nose and say, hey, we'll lead you where we want and tell you what you're to believe. And we're going to restrict your power, which is what Old Testament law does to a woman, to a daughter. All right? But it says that. Somewhere, I believe it's Jeremiah 31, it does say, why do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips like a woman in travail? Because they're trying to deliver the burden. They're trying to take over the role of the Spirit. That's what they're trying to do. They're actually trying to become women. That's what they're trying to do. They tell us how jealous we are of them. Really? You sure about that one? They go to the wall and they go, thank you, God, I wasn't made a woman. The weeping wall. That's what they do. So, but you know, they're not arrogant in any way. But they can't deliver the burden. And We're told that in Isaiah 46. They simply cannot deliver the burden. It's not on them. It's on these daughters of Zion to do that. Only women deliver children. Only women. That's what this creation shows us. But they tell you to erase it. That's not important. If you can do it and we can't, big deal. And yet, Jeremiah speaks, why then do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hip, as if he's in travail? Because you see, they can't deliver the burden, and the burden here are the children, to be reborn under the truth of heaven, not under man-made theology, not under Old Testament law. That is from Sinai, Hagar, and it puts you under bondage. The one that frees you is from Sarah, which is the law of grace. All right? And Christ come to reclaim that rejected spirit that men didn't want. And we're going to resurrect, this is all symbology, resurrect Judah, the body. That's what these daughters do by putting us back on the clean footpath. All right? We're looking at a resurrection here. And that's what this means, you know? And the nose ring is a really fascinating topic. Seems like a bit silly to study it at times. But it definitely is symbolizing oppression, or the suppression of power. And it's always these daughters, they either willingly put it on for one reason or another, or like the behemoth, you can't pierce her nose, not his nose, her nose. These are the daughters of Israel. And like I said, you're only going to claim your heritage through the daughters, because she was representative of the woman's seed that never departed from her covenant with Mother Yahweh, the Almighty God. And she is the strong right arm. And I believe it's either Psalm 80 or Psalm 84. She says, to whom will I give my right hand to? And she's talking about her daughter Zion as the power of the man. And of course that man we know who that man was. That was Christ. And then she says in Job 40, she says, have thou an arm like unto God? And several verses after that, then she says, I will confess a thing unto thee. Know thee not, thine own right hand can save thee. And she is talking about the daughter of Zion. That's who she's talking about. So there's a discussion about that. And I hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a nice day. It's a beautiful day here. Blue skies, sunshine, cold, a little cold. Not like it has been. But I hope you enjoy the video. And I hope you all have a blessed day.